Bennington, Vermont, fall 2021. The trees on Hollow Pine Street were already beginning to shed their leaves when the couple arrived. There was no moving truck, just a dark, silent sedan. The neighborhood was quiet, the kind that notices every unusual car that passes, so their arrival didn't go unnoticed. He seemed constantly tense, glancing over his shoulder. She, with sunken eyes, kept her head down. They rented the old house number 47, a 1924 building at the end of the street, near the wooded area. The first few days were silent. No good mornings, no conversation. The windows were always closed, even on sunny days. Some neighbors found it strange, but no more so than the porch light, which never went out. At night, hushed whispers escaped through the cracks in the blinds. It seemed like a meticulously rehearsed routine. Something was off, but no one had the courage to say it out loud. In the third week, Mrs. Elaine, who lived next door, decided to bring a welcome cake. She knocked on the door, waited, but no one answered. She was getting ready to return when she noticed something curious. The doorbell had been removed. Not ripped off, carefully removed. The doorknob smelled faintly of rust. The next day, she found the cake plate back on her porch, clean, but with something inside, an old, heavy gold button from a man's coat, one she swore she'd seen in a portrait of her grandfather. This disturbed her, but she thought it might just be coincidence. Hollow Pine Street had seen eccentricities before, but this was different. That same night, she heard a sound that sounded like someone dragging furniture inside her neighbor's house. The sound lasted exactly 47 seconds. Then, total silence. Not even the crickets dared interrupt. Winter began to arrive with strong winds, and residents began to notice something strange in the yard of house number 47. No animals approached. Not squirrels, not birds, not stray cats. It was as if the lot had an aura of rejection. The city gardener, who came once a month to trim the trees, refused to enter the yard. He said he saw bare footprints in the wet ground, going back and forth from the fence to the back door, but they disappeared before reaching the entrance. He also said he heard a feminine laugh coming from the woods, even though no one was in sight. The next day, he requested a route change. Hollow Pine Street was already beginning to carry an invisible weight. People whispered about the couple, invented theories. But none explained why, over time, everyone who looked at that house too long began to dream about it. The dreams began simply dark hallways, half-open doors, slow footsteps behind them. But they soon became more specific. Most of the residents dreamed of the same room, a damp, stone-walled basement where someone whispered their names from behind a false wall. The strange thing was that House 47 didn't have a basement. At least, none of it was listed on any registered plans. A young man named Logan, who lived 2 houses down, decided to investigate on his own. He tried discreetly filming through the windows with his cell phone, but the images always came out distorted, as if the air inside the house were vibrating. One night, he claimed to have seen someone watching him from the attic window, someone wearing an old-fashioned hat, reminiscent of those from the 1930s. When he went upstairs to show his mother the photo, the file no longer existed. In January, a blackout hit part of the city. Hollow Pine was completely dark, with one exception. House number 47 kept its lights on as if nothing had happened. Neighbors recorded the phenomenon with their cell phones, but no video captured the house's light. The next day, the city sent a technician to check the electrical connection. He went in, checked the meter, and came out pale. He said there hadn't been an active electrical connection in the house for months. Just old, disconnected, corroded wiring. The light couldn't possibly be on, but it was. The technician asked not to return. Hours later, an unknown woman appeared on the street. She was wearing black clothes and gloves and stopped right in front of house number 47. She didn't go in. She simply left something on the door frame, a twisted iron key wrapped in red tape, and then she disappeared without speaking to anyone. When spring arrived, the couple seemed to have disappeared from their routine. No one saw them coming or going anymore. But the light was still on, and at night, sometimes shadows passed through the curtains, until one morning the house's mailbox began to fill up, piled up with mail, newspapers, flyers. A week, 2, 3. The mailman notified the police. The hesitant neighbors agreed to file a report. When the police arrived, they tried to contact them without success. The door was locked from the inside. No windows had been broken. They decided to break in. Upon entering, they found everything in its place: dirty dishes in the sink, still fresh food in the refrigerator, folded clothes on the sofa. But not a living soul. No trace of a leak. Only a low sound coming from upstairs, like an old tape recorder playing a tape. It repeated only one phrase: "It's not the first time. It's not the first time." On the second floor, the couple's bedroom was tidy. The bed was made, the clothes were in the closet, and perfumes were on the dresser. But something caught their attention. Above the bed was a framed black and white photo with a dedication on the back. It was from 1931. The image showed a smiling couple in front of the same house, number 47. The woman in the photo was identical to the one who had lived there for the past few months. Same face, same look. The signature on the back read, "For the two of us who never left this place." No documents in the house indicated previous owners with those names. In the attic, the police found boxes with objects that did not belong to the recent couple newspapers from decades past. Typed letters and a diary ending in 1952. On the last page, written in shaky handwriting, they came back. Every time someone tries to leave, they come back. The diary found in the attic began to be studied by local authorities. Its pages contained accounts from people who had lived in the house over the decades, all with similar patterns: isolation, paranoid behavior, a feeling of being watched, recurring dreams about the non-existent basement. In one entry, dated 1946, a woman described waking one night with the impression that someone had lain beside her, even though she was alone. Other pages mentioned the presence of an invisible guest, someone who could not be seen, but who left small signs: a moved chair, a door ajar, an object that disappeared for days and then reappeared in the same place. The repetition of details haunted researchers, especially since the accounts from almost 100 years ago coincided with the testimonies of current neighbors. During the investigation, an intriguing detail emerged. The original deed to house number 47 had been lost. There was no official record in the local registry office explaining how the house had passed from owner to owner over the years. Only recent documents, all with gaps. The strangest thing was an illegible signature on all previous rental contracts, always in the same shaky handwriting and bearing the same date, November 12th. One expert stated that the contracts appeared to have been written with the same typewriter used. For the letters in the attic, to skeptics, it was just a bizarre coincidence. To others, it was confirmation that something in that house had stood the test of time. Something, or someone, had been signing the contracts forever, as if the house had a will of its own, and chose who to allow. The press tried to cover the case, but something seemed to be preventing the story from spreading. A local reporter published an article in the Bennington newspaper, but it was withdrawn hours later for editorial reasons. He then decided to make a podcast about the Hollow Pine mystery. 3 days after the first episode, he disappeared without a trace. His car was found near the woods, with his cell phone turned off and his laptop broken on the passenger seat. The final episode, never officially published, ended up leaked on obscure internet forums. In it, the reporter says he found a letter inside the house, addressed to him with his full name and dated 2 days before his visit. The letter read, "You shouldn't be here. The house doesn't want to be remembered." While the house was under investigation, the city tried to move forward. The city installed a fence around the property and posted no trespassing signs. But that didn't stop curious onlookers from trying to get close. A group of young men invaded the property at night with flashlights and cameras. Only one of them returned. In a state of shock, unable to speak, he trembled and held a small wooden box in his hands. Inside was a piece of mirror with fingernail marks and a note written in dried blood. "It's not a reflection. It's a memory." The boy was hospitalized. In the following days, neighbors reported sounds of children's laughter coming from inside the house, even though no one else was inside. And a new mark appeared on the exterior wall, the silhouettes of 2 people holding hands, like shadows etched into the concrete. The psychologist called to analyze the young survivor reported something disturbing. According to her, the boy wasn't in a state of ordinary trauma, but seemed awake inside a dream that hasn't yet ended. In one of his sessions, he repeatedly wrote on a sheet of paper, "Home is not a place. Home is a memory." The scariest part was when he asked for the clinic's mirrors to be turned off. He claimed he could see the couple inside them, staring back. After this session, he became completely silent. Days later, the office mirror cracked for no apparent reason. When reviewing the security camera footage, a figure appeared for a split second in the glass's reflection, a woman in a dark dress, standing next to the chair where the boy was. But no one else saw her in person that day. The police, under pressure to close the case, officially declared it a voluntary disappearance. They sent the file to be archived, even with evidence that made no sense. No concrete evidence of foul play, no bodies, no bank or digital transactions involving the missing persons, but residents knew the case was far from over. Since the disappearance, more than 5 families have moved from Hollow Pine Street. Some claimed feelings of persecution, others reported changes in their children's behavior. One woman even claimed her daughter began drawing pictures of house number 47, with interior details she had never seen before. When questioned, the girl said she visited the place in her dreams, and that the couple told bedtime stories. In all the images taken by the child, the porch light was on. Almost a year later, house number 47 was declared uninhabitable, yet it still stood there, untouched, covered in dead leaves, with the porch light still on. The electric meter had been removed months earlier, but the glow remained. One day, without warning, a new couple showed up. They had foreign accents and claimed to be there by a calling. They showed legitimate documents, albeit with the dates changed. When neighbors asked if they knew what had happened, they smiled and said that it was all part of the house's history. In the following nights, candles were seen burning in the windows, and low chants echoed from the living room. The same pattern as before repeated itself. But now, the residents of the street knew what was coming next. And yet, no one called the police. A short time later, the couple reappeared. Not the new couple, but the old couple, the ones that had disappeared, or at least people who looked exactly like them. They were seen walking at night, hand in hand, in the woods, behind the house. When a neighbor tried to approach them, they smiled and disappeared into the trees. The next morning, fingerprints were found on the back door, and a new note was left in the mailbox. "We never left. We're just waiting for the house to open again." The paper looked old, but the ink was fresh. The local sheriff, tired of the negative attention, decided to ignore the incident. It was easier to dismiss it as mass hysteria than to admit the inexplicable. But the echo of that phrase wouldn't leave the residents' minds. The house to open again. Open for whom? The following week, a strange phenomenon struck the street security cameras. They all stopped working simultaneously at exactly 3:33 a.m. And when they returned the next day, the memory cards were blank. Only one of them recorded anything, a distorted image, as if of a veiled figure standing in the middle of the street, looking directly at the camera. The figure was static, but dark spots appeared in the corners of the video, moving as if hands were trying to touch the lens. The file lasted 13 seconds and ended with a black screen and a flashing phrase, "Your house is just a rehearsal." Forensic experts were unable to explain how that text was inserted. The system was flawless. The video should never have existed. 2 weeks later, Mrs. Elaine, the neighbor who was stood up, disappeared. The door was locked from the inside with no signs of a struggle. In her room, they found an entire wall scrawled in charcoal, with words repeated over and over. "She listens through the wall." In the center, drawn with obsessive precision, was the symbol of a cracked mirror with a hand emerging from it. No mirror was found in the house. No explanation for the leak. In the closet, an old dress hung, its label still sewn on hollow pine, 1931. The same date as the photo, the same time as the diary entries. It was as if, little by little, the present was bending to the house's past, or perhaps being devoured by it, like a cycle repeating itself, with new characters. It was at this point that the symbol began to appear elsewhere, scratched on the benches of the local school, etched into the trunks of trees in the forest, even drawn in lipstick on the mirror of a public restroom in town. No one knew who was doing it, but children began drawing it in their notebooks, claiming they had seen it in their dreams. Some residents claimed to hear voices behind the walls in the early hours of the morning. Others reported that clocks always stopped at the same time, 3:33 a.m. The feeling that something was about to happen grew. An oppressive silence hung over the street. Hollow Pine was no longer just a street. It was becoming a breaking point, a place where time, logic, and identity began to slowly crumble, like a memory no longer theirs. A theory began circulating on occult forums. House number 47 was a fixed echo, a kind of dimensional node where past traumas replay like waves. An ancient ritual, perhaps never completed, was trapped there waiting for someone to complete it. That's why the couple never fled. They simply merged with the house's memory. That's why the new residents always looked like the old ones. They weren't people, but interpretations, echoes of past versions. Someone found an old map of the village, dated 1874, and Hollow Pine Street didn't exist. But where house number 47 stands today, there was a symbol identical to the cracked mirror with a Latin inscription, "Memories remain in the house that do not sleep." Memories linger in the house that never sleeps. Today, Hollow Pine Street still exists, but no one passes by without quickening their pace. The house at number 47 still stands, still and watchful. The porch light has never gone out. The doorbell has never rang again. The house has been put up for sale several times, but buyers disappear before signing the lease. Some say it chooses its tenants. Others say it was demolished, but has returned. The older residents avoid talking about it, but everyone knows something inhabits that place, something that doesn't move like us, that doesn't think like us, but watches and waits. Because Hollow Pine isn't just a street, it's a portal. And those who hear whispers behind the walls tonight may discover that it's already inside. Subscribe now for more stories like this and ring the bell so you never miss the next mystery. Share with someone who dares to enter the Hollow Pine.